So good morning everyone, my name is Lalit Soni and you are watching Drishti IAS. In this live session, we will be discussing the Indian Express newspaper. I'm sorry for the delay, there was some issue. Anyway, we'll be starting with these articles over here. There are 3 articles which we will be discussing in detail. That is your what is windfall gain tax. We will be talking about this particular kind of tax which is generally imposed on the items like fuel, crude oil, etc. So we will be talking about that. Then moving on, we will be talking about the will RBI go for CRR cut. Okay. So what is CRR and why RBI is considering that, what experts are saying, we will be talking about all these things. Then what is the lake effect snow phenomena? So we will be talking about this lake effect snow phenomena. Okay. Recently it was witnessed in the Great Lakes. You must have heard about the 5 Great Lakes which are there on the USA and Canada border. Okay. So here this particular phenomena was witnessed. So we will be talking about that as well. Okay. Other than that, we will be looking at the practice question which was given to you in the previous lecture. After that, there is some fact of the day and then constitutional amendment. Okay. So let's start our discussion. Here, India Navy Day is celebrated on 4th December, 26th January, 24th November, 26th November. Okay. So option A is your right answer, that is 4th December. Yesterday we have celebrated this particular day. This is to commemorate that Navy's performance in the Karachi attack. When we are talking about the Karachi port, Indian Navy has gone for a surprise you can say operation over there. The name of the operation was Operation Trident. Okay, and we have actually destroyed various Pakistani vessels etc. in 1971. The day was this, that is 4th December 1971, and that is why we are commemorating that as a India Navy Day. Okay, now let's move further. Before that, I would like to tell you this: all the classes of Mukherjee Nagar Drishti IAS has been shifted to Noida sector 15. So our first GS foundation course in the Hindi medium will be starting from 9th December 3 p.m. and when we are talking about the English medium batch, that will be starting on December 12th, that 6 p.m. in the evening. Okay, when we are talking about the Prayagraj center, we have UPSC GS foundation course which is starting on 2nd January 2025. It will be both in Hindi as well as in English medium on different timings. Hindi medium it will be 6 p.m. and English medium that will be 5:30 p.m. Okay. Other than that, we have started another you can say initiative for you, that is Sambhav 2025. Okay. Now in this particular initiative on the website you will be getting 10 daily prelims questions, okay, for your practice, and you can trace the ranking in real time. Okay, so that is a good thing. You will be finding out where you are standing in the race. Then you will also be giving 2 mains practice questions daily, so that you are not detached from the mains preparation. So you can say that it is an integrated plan. Okay, the questions are based on the PYQ analysis, so that will be helpful for you to see what kind of question has been asked in the UPSC in the past and what kind of question can be asked in the UPSC. Okay. So this is about your Sambhav 2025, an integrated plan for your pre as well as main preparation. Access is open for everyone at our website. Okay, so you can go and explore. And starting with the fact of the day, here you can see constitutional status of holding parliamentary sessions. When we talk about the parliamentary session, recently various southern states has said that because of the harsh winters in the India or the northern India, you will be seeing that there are many people who are not very easy when we are talking about these winters. So most of the southern states are saying that parliamentary sessions can be held somewhere else than the New Delhi. Okay, so what can this be done, or what are the constitutional provisions? So we will be talking about that in this particular fact. Constitutional status of holding parliamentary session. Constitution of India does not mandate a specific location for holding a parliamentary session. It does not mandate a you can say location that it should be there in Delhi. Other than that, you must have seen Article 85. Article 85 says that the president can summon the parliament or summon the houses. So at such a time and place he deems fit. So basically they are saying that president can decide on the time as well as the location of these sessions. So here you can see Article 85 of the Indian Constitution empowers the president to summon sorry, to summon each house of the parliament at such time and place as he deems fit, ensuring that no more than 6 months elapse between 2 sessions. So the gap between the 2 sessions should not be more than 6 months, but president can decide on the time and the place. Okay. However, traditionally all sessions are being held in Delhi. So that is the tradition, but there are, you can say, provisions which are giving this power to the president, where he can decide on the time and the place of the session. So yes, there is a provision that you can go for a parliamentary session outside Delhi also. Okay, so that is something new which we have come across. Now moving further, 99th Amendment Act 2014. Now we know that for the appointment of the judges we have a collegium system. Okay, generally you will be seeing that collegium system has been criticized for being opaque and less transparent, and that is why government has come up with a bill, okay, wherein they have proposed forming National Judicial Appointment Commission. Okay, but Supreme Court has actually struck down that particular Constitution Amendment Act. Okay, let's see. This act replaced the collegium system of appointment of the judges of Supreme Court and High Court with a new body called National Judicial Appointment Commission, NJAC. However, in 2015, the Supreme Court declared this amendment as unconstitutional and void. Consequently, the earlier collegium system becomes operative again. So basically, what they decided that, or the government has decided that executive should also have some kind of role in appointment of the judges, but Supreme Court has actually struck down that, and now right now we are having the same old collegium system for the appointment of judges. So 99th Amendment Act, under which we have come up with the idea of NJSC, that is National Judicial Appointment Committee. Sorry, this is C. So, but that has been struck down by the Supreme Court. Now coming to the first part of our discussion, that is the windfall gain tax. After Russia-Ukraine war, what has happened is that the prices of oil has risen. Okay, because when we talk about the global supply chain, okay, because of the wars etc., you will be seeing that the supply chain get disrupted, and if supply chain is getting disrupted, that means that demand will be high, supply will be less, that means prices will increase. Okay, because of the Russia-Ukraine war in 2022, February 2022 it has started, and because of which supply chain constraints were there, and the prices of oil has increased actually very much. Earlier you can say from nearly $75 per barrel to they have become somewhere around $100 per barrel. Now the thing is, this increase in the $25, okay, now those domestic producers are there in the country. Okay, now obviously this because of the supply chain the prices has gone increased, but the prices will also be increased for the domestic producers as well. Okay, let's say in India there is a company A. In India there is a company A who is producing petrol. Okay, and they are having this price earlier $70 per barrel. Okay, now because of the global supply chain disruptions, these prices has increased because our prices are also marked with the international market. So now these prices has increased to $110. Now they per barrel they are actually earning $40 extra profit. Okay, now this profit is not because of the, you can say, supply chain disruption etc., but because they are the domestic producers, they do not have to import it, so they are not even part of that particular supply chain. Right now that has increased just because the international market the prices has increased, and they are also getting benefited because of that. Now that is an undue benefit which they are getting, though they have not done anything to, any kind of input has not been used by this producer to get this particular profit. To make sure that such profit is given to the government has imposed a windfall gain tax. Okay, I'll tell you what is this tax. After that we will be moving to the article over here. Now imagine an oil company that normally sells crude oil at $15 per barrel. Due to the sudden global crisis like a war, oil prices skyrocketed to $100 per barrel. Okay, so basically from 50 to 100 that has happened because of the supply chain disruptions. Now the company earned huge extra profit without increasing its production or efficacy. Now this company is in the domestic market, they have not been disrupted by the war, but yet they are extra profit they are getting because of the international rise in the price. Okay, so without any kind of input they are getting this output or extra profit. Now these unexpected extra profits are called windfall gain. Okay, because of some unexpected change, this gain is there, that is called as windfall gains, because they are coming out of the blue and not because of the company's effort. To ensure that there is a fairness and the redistribution of these unexpected profits, so government will go and impose this windfall gain tax. What will happen to that? What will happen to it then? So the surplus will be with the government. So let's say if there was this particular price rise, government will put a tax of rupees 40, sorry, $40 per barrel. Now this $40 is going to the government, and government will use it for the welfare schemes, etc., or any kind of you can say expenditure government want to go for. But this extra price is now going to the government's revenue. Second thing is, now since the domestic production is there and prices are rising, so mostly the producer will try to go for the export of such oil, okay, so that they can get more prices, okay. But because of which the domestic supply might get hindered, and that is why they will put this particular kind of tax, so that they will not get any kind of extra profit, okay, or they are not encouraged to go for the exports, they will be sending it, giving it to the domestic supply, okay. So here, coming to the article again. Government on Monday withdrew the windfall gain tax on domestic production of the crude oil and export of the diesel, petrol and the aviation turbine fuel, scrapping the levy that was introduced 30 months ago amid a surge in the prices due to the Russian invasion of the Ukraine. Okay, so basically, when Russia invaded Ukraine, because of which prices has increased and government has to go for the windfall gain tax. Okay. Apprehensions about the availability of the fuel in the domestic market, decision was taken to impose the duty, because as I told you, if prices are high, the domestic producer will also try to go for the exports, okay. So there will be a disruption in the domestic supply. Considering that, they have gone for the windfall gain tax. Now global oil and the fuel flows has stabilized after 30 months now. Though the war is still going on, but the supply chains are stabilized now. We are having ample amount of supply of oil and all, and the prices has been stabilized again to the old level. Considering all that, government has actually done away with or withdraw the windfall gain tax. Now primarily due to these reasons, the windfall gain tax was not generating any significant revenue, because the prices are almost similar. So any kind of tax is not needed over there. So that is why government has withdrawn it. When it was first introduced on the July 1st, 2022, windfall gain tax on the domestic crude was somewhere around $40 per barrel. Now crude oil prices were well below $100 per barrel at the time. Now it is under $75 per barrel. So they were actually going for the $40 tax, and right now prices are $25. So you can say that there is not a significant revenue which can be generated from these tax, and that is why government has actually withdrawn this particular tax. Okay. Now tax and its rationale. So we have already seen that what is windfall tax. Windfall gain tax used to describe cesses under the ambit of central excise imposed on the fuel exports and domestic crude oil production to tax super normal profit of the fuel exporters and the oil producers. So basically, if they are getting any undue profit or the extra profit, and then they will go for the windfall gain tax. Okay. Now to understand this, the slide we have already discussed, you can read through that, because that will be easy for you to understand. Now if we talk about the domestic crude oil and the ATF exports, these gains are in the form of, or you can say these tax are in the form of special addition excise duty. You don't have to remember all this. For diesel and petrol, this is SAED, that is special addition excise duty, and the additional excise duty. And other than that, there is this also known as road and infrastructure cess. Okay. Now this you must have heard, that is road and infrastructure cess, which is quite prominent in India. Okay. Now if you are talking about the prices, who will review it? So these you can say rates or the duties are reviewed fortnightly based on the movement of margin on the fuel and in the international market and the global crude oil prices. These levies were imposed as a global oil and the fuel prices surged in the aftermath of the Russia-Ukraine war. Prices of the crude oil produced in India benchmark to the international prices. Our prices in the domestic territory are also you can say benchmark with the international prices. Okay. And since there was a rise in the international prices, there were rise in the Indian prices too. Now at the same time, margins on the fuel were a lot more lucrative in other markets, incentivizing the refiners, particularly the private sector players, to export the fuel. This has resulted in the fuel supply disruption in the some part of the country. So basically, as I told you, in outside some markets are giving more money for the oil. In that case, these other market or the external markets are more lucrative for the exporters, and that is why they would want to go for that. But government has gone for the windfall tax, and they so that you cannot be seeing any kind of supply chain disruption in the domestic economy. Okay, so this is about this particular issue of your windfall gain tax. Just know that because of the Russia Ukraine war, prices has risen abnormally. So make sure that this extra profit is not going to the producers, it is going to the government, so that government can use it for the other measures. And that is why, sorry, hold on. Okay. So next here is, will Reserve Bank go for a CRR cut? CRR is basically your cash reserve ratio. So when we talk about RBI, every bank has to give some amount of their deposits to RBI in the form of liquidity. That is basically cash. So whatever deposit a bank is getting, some percentage they have to keep with the RBI. Okay, as of now this is 4.5%. Now on this 4.5% deposition with the RBI will not give you any kind of interest. So any kind of interest will not be given. Now why is that RBI has to keep such thing in their own you can say from the banks with them on? Because banks has this tendency that they will be giving loans, etc. The more money they will have, they will give more loans to make sure that the liquidity in the market is balanced. There is not much liquidity in the market. If there is much liquidity, or you can say money supply is easy in the market, that means that there will be more rupees in the market. If more rupees are there in the market, that means that you will have more inflation. Okay, people will have money in the market, and then if there is a any kind of supply side constraint if is there, or if people have more money, they will spend more. That means that it will increase the inflation. So that is why, to make sure that markets are balanced, liquidity in the market is balanced, this is one of the tool which is used by RBI, that is your CRR, cash reserve ratio. Okay, now let's see, will RBI bank go for the CRR cut? Now will they go for it or not? Simple thing is that right now if we are talking about the market conditions, these are liquidity is quite tight. Okay, to make sure that liquidity is there in the market, so that bank can go for the more loans, so that companies can go for the investment, you have to you can say ease the liquidity in the market. But considering the inflation, you cannot go for the repo rate cuts. Okay, so that is why what experts are saying, that there are high chances that RBI might go for the CRR cut. Okay, so let's see. Although there seems to be a broad consensus that the repo rate, the key policy rate, is likely to remain unchanged at 6.5%. This you can remember. Right now the repo rate in Indian economy is 6.5%. Right now the CRR is basically 4.5%. Okay. Now here you can say there is an expectation that the RBI may announce a cut in the cash reserve ratio, that is basically a CRR. Amid tight condition, tight liquidity condition in the banking system, shocking low gross domestic growth, that is GDP, that is 5.4% in the July to September quarter. We have seen that earlier RBI has expected that growth will be somewhere around 7%, but it was somewhere around 5.4%. And now because of which we can say that growth is also decreasing. Okay, and inflation which is increasing. So to actually incentivize the growth, you have to go for the investment. For that you have to give the loans. Okay, for that you have to cut the repo rate. Now you don't want to cut the repo rate, that is why you have to go for the other tool, that is CRR. Now they will be going for the reduction of the CRR. For like last 4 years they did not go for any reduction in the CRR. This time they might go for it. Since the last 4 years CRR has been 4.5%. They might go for a cut of 25 basic points or 50 basic points. When we talk about basic points, that means that 100 basic points is basically your 1%. Okay, so keep that in your mind. What is this? What is this CRR or cash reserve ratio. The cash reserve ratio, that is CRR, is the percentage of the bank's total deposits that is required to maintain in the liquid cash with the RBI as a reserve. As I told you earlier, that every bank has to give certain percentage of their deposits to RBI in the form of cash. Okay, now that is called as the cash reserve ratio. Okay, now at present it is 4.5% determined by the RBI. From time to time, bank do not get any interest on this amount, which is kept as CRR from the RBI to manage the inflation and check the excessive lending. As I told you, to ensure that if you are not targeting the repo rates, you can target the CRR. Now moving further, CRR cut expected. As I told you, right now the condition in the economy, liquidity condition in the economy is tight. To make sure that is easy, you have to go for some kind of liquidity, you have to infuse some kind of liquidity in the market. That can be done through the CRR. Okay, so these are basically your open market operations which RBI has to perform. Now when we talk about the monetary policy or the liquidity, etc., all the decisions are taken by the RBI. When we talk about the fiscal policy or any kind of tax related matters, that is the prerogative of the Indian government. Okay, now moving further, the liquidity in the banking system has tightened because of the RBI's actions to stabilize the rupee. Now if you have to stabilize the rupee, recently you must have seen that the dollar is getting strengthened. Okay, because of which rupee is going weak. To make sure that rupee is balanced or the rupee is actually pegged to a particular performance. Okay, so that for that what they have to do is that they have to actually when we talk about the dollar is getting strengthened, that means that there is demand of dollar in the market. Okay, demand of dollar is high, that means that prices are going high. What you have to do to keep the prices low? You have to make sure that this demand is fulfilled. So what RBI will do is RBI will sell the dollars in the market. RBI will send some kind of dollars in the market. Okay, and considering that when demand is fulfilled or demand is balanced, so the prices will also get normalized. Okay, this way RBI tries to keep the you can say rupee safe. Okay, so that is open market operations which are performed by the RBI. Now this tightening in the situation is there because when you are selling the dollars in the market, that means that you are pulling out rupee. Okay, you are taking rupee from the market and you are using keeping it with the bank. Now if rupee is not there in the market, that means that again there will be less money to give for the investment and the loans. Okay, so that is the situation. So there are high chances that they will go for the cut in the CRR. Okay, now coming to the next one, that is International Cheetah Day, and 2 male cheetahs released into the wilds at Kuno. Okay, so basically when we are talking about this particular incident that has happened, when we talk about the National Cheetah Day, that was yesterday, that is Wednesday, the 4th of December. Okay, now 2 cheetah has been released into white. When we talk about the cheetah reintroduction program, there are various cheetah which has been introduced in the Kuno National Park from the Africa. So they were kept under the captivity, and last year also some cheetahs were dying, etc. So considering that they were kept in captivity, now 2 of them has been released. There are total 24 cheetahs in the Kuno, and out of which 12 are cubs. Okay, so that is something about Kuno. Kuno is located in Madhya Pradesh. Okay, it was again in use, so I have taken it. Gandhi Sagar Wildlife Sanctuary, we have talked about it again and again, that Gandhi Sagar is to be considered as the second home for these cheetahs. In the next wave of reintroductions, there are high chances that we will be sending them to Gandhi Sagar Wildlife Sanctuary, that is also there in Madhya Pradesh. Okay, coming to the next one, lake effect snow phenomena freezing the Great Lake region. Okay, now first where is this Great Lake region? Here you can see this is Canada, this is your USA. Okay, on the border we have these lakes, that is basically Lake Superior, Lake Huron, Lake Michigan, Lake Erie and Lake Ontario. Okay, now these 5 lakes are called as the Great Lakes. Now what is happening is that these are basically your relatively warmer lakes. Okay, if you move towards the poles, okay, in the north, if you move towards the poles, cold region is there, so there are cold winds which are there over here. Okay, now these are relatively warm. So what happens in the recently what has happened is that some of the cold winds has been moving towards the these Great Lakes. Now these are warmer lakes. Okay, now when these cold winds are coming from the, you can say, Arctic circles, etc., so there is this ocean and all, they will bring the moisture as well. Okay, they will bring the moisture, and when they will be coming over here, now these are the warm, you can say, winds or the warm lakes which are there. These are the cold ones. You know that the warm air rises. Okay, cold airs are basically your, you can say, highly dense airs, so they will suppress, and they will be when we are talking about this, let's say this is your column of the wind. Okay, now this is the hot wind which is over here. Now this cold is coming over here. Since cold is basically dense one, so cold will get deposited underneath and the hot air will start to rise above. Okay, so similarly when the cold winds came over here, these hot winds started to rise. Now when hot winds are rising, we already have the moisture which has been brought by the cold winds. Now as they go up in the atmosphere, they will start to form clouds. Okay, and if moisture is very high and the conditions are you can say in favor, because of these clouds there will be precipitation in the form of snow. Because of the temperature, these lakes are also not warm water, these are relatively warmer than this particular region. Okay, now that these are rising up in the atmosphere, and ultimately what will happen is that cloud will form and precipitation will happen in the form of snow, and you will be seeing that these basically winds, or the, you can say, bands of the cold winds are basically narrow in nature. Okay, so they will be impacting a narrow area. Ultimately what will happen is that few miles away, you will not be seeing any kind of snowfall, and the place you are in, you will be seeing a huge snowfall over there. Okay, so that is basically the idea. I think there can be some kind of issue on your end of the internet, so please reload or rebuffer. Okay, anyways, now let's move further. So basically that is the idea behind the snow lake phenomena. Okay, so because of the these lakes, there will be a snowfall, and that is called as snow lake phenomena. So let's see over here. New York, Pennsylvania, Ohio, Michigan, situated along the Great Lakes, 1.2 meters of the lake effect snow. Okay, lake effect snow, because of the lake's effect there is snow, that is why it is called as lake effect snow. They are saying that they have seen 1.2 meters of this particular thing. That means that that is the thickness of the snowfall bracket which has happened. Okay, so in the areas of New York, etc., this is quite prominent. Okay, generally it will be from the 30 to 61 centimeter, it can go up to 1.2 meter to 1.8 meter as well. Okay, and you will be finding that, let's say in this area there was this snowfall. Okay, and in the vicinity there will be another area, you will not be witnessing any snowfall over there. Okay, if it is there, that will be very less. So considering the narrow belt of the snows, okay, so in these particular areas will face a lot of snowfall. Okay, the movement of the cold air mass across the stretch of warm lake water triggering the lake effect, a phenomena that has captivated the weather experts. So basically here they are, what they are saying, that stretches of the warm lakes, okay, and this particular lake effect is triggered by the cold winds which are coming from the above, or from the north pole side. Now moving further, lake effect snow often occurs in the relatively narrow bands that dumps copious amount of snow. The phenomena can drastically increase snowfall totals, and it may slam one area and leaving the another area just untouched. As I told you that this particular area will be jammed with the snow and this area will be untouched. Okay, so that is kind of the effect they have, because these winds are basically narrow bands of the winds. Okay, now Great Lakes, world's largest group of freshwater lakes along the US-Canada border, even more snowfall in the coming days that is expected. We have already seen that where these Great Lakes are and why this is important. Okay, now how is the lake effect get triggered? This I have already told you. That again I will explain to you over here, that from the areas of the Arctic, etc., which are basically relatively colder area. Okay, so from there the, you can say, bands of cold air are moving towards the lakes over here. Now these lakes are relatively warmer lakes. Okay, as I told you, cold air are basically dense airs, and when these dense airs are coming to this area, the warmer air will start to rise. Okay, I have told you this particular diagram that, let's see, this is the water column, sorry, air column, and the cold air is coming over here. Since it is dense, this will go and take the place in the bottom, and when this is taking the place at the bottom, so the warm air will start to rise. And now if you will see in the vertical column, when the air is started to rise, that is called as convection. When convection is there, there will be cloud formation, and at the particular level cloud will be, bursting, and the precipitation will be there, and this precipitation over here will be in the form of snow. That is how it get triggered. Okay, so in the narrow bands which are, affecting these particular regions, you will be seeing that there will be snowfall, and others are basically untouched. So that is about your lake effect snow, which we have already discussed over here. So you can go through this article, or you can watch this particular explanation over here. Now moving further, under layers of soils, 80 sandstone pillars and the slice of Patna's Maurya era past. So basically we have discussed about the 80 pillar hall. Recently ASI is again over here and working. Okay, so considering that it was in news, this is the sole remain, you can say that one of the one of the monument which is there with respect to the Mauryan era. This is destroyed over here. Mostly you will not be finding anything much over here, but there are some pillars which has been found. You can say at the base of these pillars there was wood, at the top of this pillar there was wood. Okay, so these are part of the wooden palace which was there, made by the King Ashoka. And the third Buddhist council which was there, and that was also been done by that was being convened by Samrat Ashok, and this is the place where it was convened. Okay, so here you can say 80 sandstone pillar once stood holding up what was possibly a Buddhist assembly hall from the Maurya period. Now ASI has decided to uncover the pillar that are a key part of the evidence linking the Patliputra, the seat of Mauryan Empire, to the present day Patna. Okay, this 80 pillared hall is there in Kumrahar. Okay, it is there in Kumrahar, that is in the vicinity of Patna. Okay, historians believe that this was here in this open air hall with its 80 pillars standing all on the wooden floor and holding up a wooden ceiling. The Emperor Ashoka, who ruled between 268 to 280 BCE, called a decisive meeting of the third Buddhist council to unify the faction ridden Buddhism. So you know that in Buddhism there are various factions which were there. After Buddha, the Buddhism was divided into two major sects. One was Mahayana and another was Hinayan. Okay, so after that, within these sects also there are various sects which has emerged. Now the Samrat Ashok has convened a third Buddhist council over here in Kumrahar in Patliputra. Okay, wherein they have gone for the unification of these different factions. Okay, so that is the place where the third Buddhist council has happened, that is in Patliputra. Please remember that particular fact. Okay, now this is considered to be among the oldest structure with respect to the Mauryan period. Though the historians have not been conclusive about the exact time of the construction of the 80 pillar hall, it surely belonged to the Mauryan period, that is 321 to 185 BCE. King Ashoka is said to have called the third Buddhist council over here. So this is about something which you have to remember about this particular hall. Now here you can say bricks was not still used, and the hall was a wooden roof and a wooden floor. Now excavated the 80 pillar assembly hall in two phases. When we are talking about the ASI, they have actually gone for the two phases of you can say excavation over here. One was in 1912 to 1915 by American archaeologist David Brainerd Spooner. Okay, David Brainerd Spooner, who found one pillar. Okay, he found one pillar over here, a number of stones fragment and 80 pits which had concluded were spots where the pillar actually hold. Okay, so basically he has found that there were some pits which were there. Okay, now he has assumed that was the area where the pillar were actually standing. Okay, obviously if there is a pillar, that will be imbibed inside the earth, so that it will be standing tall. Okay, so that is there. Second phase of excavation was in 1955 to 61 by KP Jaiswal Research Institution in Patna. They have found four more pillars over here. Okay, so this is about your 80 Pillars Hall with respect to the Mauryan times, and here Buddhist Council was convened. So you can remember that. Okay. Now moving further to the next one, that is South Korea opposition submits bill to impeach president after martial law. You can say debacle. So yesterday we have talked about the martial law in South Korea. President has imposed it, Parliament has revoked it within hours, and now Parliament has come up with a bill to impeach president over here. There is nothing much to discuss over here. We have already talked about the issue which has happened yesterday. Okay. Now moving further to the next one. Yesterday we had talked about that there was 9 agreements which has been signed by Nepal with respect to China, and they did not mention BRI. Okay. Now today there is news that the Nepal and China signs a BRI framework, paves way for the work on the projects. Okay, so that is one development which has happened, that Nepal will be considering to go for the BRI and implement. How they will be going for the implementation, for that they have signed a BRI framework. Okay, so that is about it. Now for your own read, there is this article, production cap chemical ban and why global plastic treaty talks collapsed. Okay, now if we talk about the plastic pollution, it is the need, what is the need of our is to have a treaty on the plastic, but because of the issues between the stakeholders, there was this you can say that the conference was unconclusive. So you can talk about the you can go and read this particular article. You don't have to worry much about it because this is just in the initial phases. There is no concrete thing which has happened. So we will be talking about that as and when there was some kind of discussion with respect to the production cap and the chemical ban on the plastic ban. Okay, so you can go through this article, that is for your own read. Now in the end, we have practice question for you. What is the key feature of windfall gain tax? It applies to all small scale industry. It is charged on the company's normal operating profits. It targets arising from the unusual and the sudden market condition. It is a flat tax rate applicable to all companies. So you have to attempt this question and answer to me in the comment box. Okay. With that, I would like to take your leave. I'll see you in the next episode. Till then, have a good day. Thank you and please subscribe the channel.